Hannibal is visual splendor, succulent and smoky. That is to say, there is a veritable buttload of plated dishes, artisan crafted by chefs wearing pants most fancy. In the narrative, most of the food that we see Hannibal Lecter serve is made of human beings, but the series dares us to ignore that and excite our appetites nonetheless. In this, we participate in Hannibal's temptation of Will Graham to become more like himself. Will is investigating a number of murders, possibly linked to the Chesapeake Ripper. Little does he know, Hannibal, his official but unofficial therapist, is that very serial killer.
Eat me.
Hannibal manipulates Will because he wants to get closer to him, to fashion him, to tempt him, to eat that which can never be eaten.
Eat me now.
The inner conflict of human desire, societal expectations, morality, all contained in this taboo.
Eat me, eat me, eat me, eat me, eat me, eat me.
I thought I might participate in the narrative in my own way by choosing meals that resemble the dishes from Hannibal's dinner table, whilst rewatching the series that I thoroughly enjoyed during its original run. Then I thought, nah, I don't cook fancy food and I don't buy fancy food either. To the former, it's time-consuming, and to the latter, it's expensive. Nevertheless, the idea intrigued me enough to consider some form of ARG while watching Hannibal, and I settled on eating the exact opposite of what Hannibal Lecter would serve: an ordinary protein, over and over again, from a variety of fast food restaurants. In preparation for my feast, I asked the internet which common meat most closely resembles human flesh, both in taste and texture.
Oh, you might want to switch to incognito mode, otherwise your targeted ads will be pretty cannibal specific.
The most consistent answer was pork due to its saltiness and composition. Pork is an everyday supermarket staple, but it occurs less frequently in fast food than other meats like beef and chicken. For example, Burger King had a pulled pork sandwich for a limited time, but it was discontinued. Bacon can adorn many of its sandwiches, but there is no sandwich on their present-day royal menu in which pork is the primary protein. Burger King has a fish sandwich, multiple chicken sandwiches, and a plethora of burgers. But one cannot purchase a Cuban sandwich at a Burger King. This secondary presence and primary absence of pork reoccurs across most major fast food chains. McDonald's only allows its McRib sandwich to emerge, sticky and beautiful, when pork prices are low and quarterly revenue cries out for a hot pork injection. I chose chicken as my staple for this mouth-watering adventure into the drive-thru. Beef, fish, and chicken can be found in most fast food chains, but chicken is the most universal protein among them. Burger King has burgers but also chicken, whereas KFC has chicken but no burgers. Popeyes primarily sells chicken and a smattering of seafood but no burgers. The choice was clear. I would sup upon the fried-to-perfection bird and not the hamburger. I temporarily forfeited my pescatarian diet for the good of a YouTube video. I'm mentioning a lot of fast food chains here, but for the record, none of them are sponsoring this video. I have no sponsors. If you want to support my work, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/renegadecut. With that out of the way, let's begin our feast. Will Graham has a novel personality disorder / superpower. He claims that he is somewhere on the autistic spectrum, and this allows him to empathize to a powerful and almost supernatural degree. He does this by walking into a crime scene, looking at a smattering of evidence, and recreating in his boundless imagination the suspect's precise actions.
I see a man using a social disorder as a procedural device. Mildly autistic super detectives everywhere. Painful writing.
His fantasy recreations are alarmingly accurate, and this makes him a kind of sad sack Sherlock Holmes. Will is a professor who teaches FBI trainees, but he is called into the field by FBI honcho Jack Crawford. Will's preposterous, unexplained, and unnamed superpower is needed to catch a few serial killers. Will is a bit on edge about the whole thing, so Jack assigns a cannibal to give him therapy. Dr. Hannibal Lecter spends the first season manipulating Will in a desire for friendship and out of his own curiosity. Hannibal's motivations usually amount to, I just wanted to see what would happen. Hannibal Lecter is a psychiatrist who lives for the finer things in life: expensive suits, red wine, and forcing his friends to eat his other friends or sometimes themselves. Dr. Lecter is portrayed as someone not insane, but possessing a keen intellect, so refined, so wonderful, so obnoxious that he has transcended morality through the power of selfish rationalization. In the series, the audience is meant to be in awe of Dr. Lecter's mind, his cunning, his inscrutable accent, even his looks, glaring hungrily with his unmistakable facial features, appearing as if he were the world's most handsome fish. If you couldn't tell, I don't find Hannibal Lecter in this series to be nearly as fascinating as the series does. To me, he's just some creep.
Well, next time, bring your wife. I'd love to have you both for dinner.
This was my first warning sign that I was not going to enjoy this series as much as I did during its original run. I used to love this show, scrolled through Tumblr, all that stuff. But without the shock value that only comes from the first experience, the low points in the series and the unappealing aspects became more noticeable to me. In the series, the appeal of Hannibal Lecter is his provocative nature and his taste in fine art and fine food. But I find people like Hannibal Lecter insufferable even without all the murder. Opulent wealth and so-called high society gives me a rash. Feeling the need to experience something more salt of the earth in the midst of my first season rewatch, I traveled the short, winding path of the drive-thru of Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen and purchased 12 ghost pepper wings, macaroni and cheese, and a Dr. Pepper. Popeye's is not named after the non-binary sailor and instead was baptized Popeyes after the character Jimmy Popeye Doyle from The French Connection, a movie I have never seen because I have been too busy eating Popeyes. Eventually, Popeyes and the owners of Popeye the Sailor worked together, but since then, Popeyes is just Popeyes and somehow has never been taken to court. The wings were listed as ghost pepper, and maybe they were, but the fast food version of spicy is not my version of spicy. Fast food spicy needs to be not particularly spicy, lest the white bread, American cheese-eating blandosauruses that populate this ungreat nation would complain into their cracked smartphones to a customer service agent on the other side of the world who actually knows a thing or two about spicy. When I order malai kofta from one of the Indian restaurants in my area, I always ask for very spicy or Indian spicy, and sometimes they give me what I so desperately crave, and sometimes they give me not that at all, and I am left unsatisfied and unspiced. Like I said, I am not fancy, but I am spicy, and I will not accept something listed as spicy that is not challenging to consume. The wings were tasty, don't get it twisted. Yum yum, in my tum-tum. If Hannibal Lecter were forced to eat chicken wings, would he gasp in horror, knowing that he would have to use his bare hands in front of his glitterati dinner guests? Would he cry in shame at the grotesque visage of his saucy fingers? The mac and cheese was passable by the standards of fast food, but it's not exactly Thanksgiving mac and cheese now, is it? I remember a year or two ago on social media, there was mac and cheese discourse. A gaggle of goofuses were disparaging the good name of macaroni and cheese, insisting that this staple of home-cooked meals was only for children. Most of these ignoramus were from the north, and most of the ardent defenders were from the south. I was born in Baltimore, south of the Mason-Dixon line, which may account for my eternal love of this perfectly gooey dish. If you only ate this as a child and then gave up on it, maybe try it again. Be a born-again mac and cheeser. Return of the Mac. I would rather eat homemade mac and cheese than anything Hannibal Lecter would ever serve, even if his offerings had no human meat in them. Food should make us feel warm and satisfied, not special and elite, for having the privilege to feast. The saddest fact in human history is that the modern world actually produces more than enough food to feed everyone on Earth, but chooses not to. Oh, and the Dr. Pepper was, Dr. Pepper. You know what it tastes like, right? It's like if Coca-Cola's mother had taken just the right cocktail of drugs during her pregnancy to create a child with a novel personality. Between Dr. Lecter and Dr. Pepper, the choice is obvious. Dr. Lecter is a murderer, whereas Dr. Pepper only murders Pepsi. Doc Pep has finally reached the second-place cola position, lifted high and glorious through carbonated bubbles. I mentioned that I'm originally from Baltimore, and that is where Hannibal takes place. Not a lot of television series are set in the city of my birth. There's Rock, Homicide: Life on the Streets, The Wire, and Hannibal. A couple times, a character in Hannibal will claim that Baltimore is a small town, which is news to me. Baltimore is the most populous city in the state of Maryland and has a population similar to Boston or Atlanta. Perhaps they meant in square miles, but even then, only kind of. I have a lot of affection for Baltimore, but I don't live there anymore. You can only go to the aquarium so many times before you want to see more of the world. My favorite characters in Hannibal are the trio of crime scene investigators: Beverly Katz, Brian Zeller, and Jimmy Price. Beverly gets to be more involved in the main goings-on of the series, while Brian and Jimmy exist more in the background but still leave their marks. Brian and Jimmy bounce off each other in playful but competitive dialogue. This is my favorite relationship of the series.
Will I shoot you? Won't I shoot you?
I can't stand to see you burn, boo-hoo, and then blows Lane's head away with a 12-gauge.
We don't learn much about Brian and Jimmy, but I can't imagine the series without them. It would be too dry. Sadly, spoilers here, Beverly does not last throughout the series, and when the trio becomes a duo, they factor in even less than before. In Season 3, Brian and Jimmy barely exist, to the great detriment of the show. I am a huge fan of The Kids in the Hall, and it was really something to see Scott Thompson in a serious role. The trio reminds me of the lone gunman from The X-Files. Similarly, I wish there could have been a spin-off with this trio, but with Beverly gone, and the series not being all that popular to begin with, that will never come to pass. Rather than immediately visit the next most obvious fast food chicken joint, I journeyed to a drive-thru that did not specialize in chicken but sold chicken all the same. Wendy's. This burger giant has its roots in chicken though. Dave Thomas, the man from the commercials of my youth, founded Wendy's but previously served as a regional director for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Unsatisfied with being a private first class in the army of Colonel Sanders, Dave Thomas set out on his own into parts unknown. I purchased 20 spicy nuggets with ranch for dipping. They were, as all nuggets have been throughout the history of nugs, pretty good. I ate them all in one sitting, shoveling them into my face hole as if they contained the cure to a disease that I did not have. Chicken nuggets are looked down upon by food snobs, foodies, and chefs with no understanding of living on a budget, but these glorious nugs were invented by a university professor named Robert C. Baker. As a food science professor at Cornell University, Baker's mission in life was to solve the great ground meat clump paradox in the meat industry. His solution would change the McWorld. Perhaps if Hannibal Lecter knew that chicken nuggets were fashioned in an Ivy League institution, he would consider adding them to one of his preposterously elaborate dinners. Was it not the ancient Greek philosopher Diogenes who described a chicken as Plato's man? If so, would Hannibal the Cannibal be willing to scarf on these tasty mini-tenders, knowing that a plucked chicken and a human being were both featherless bipeds? Or would he cluck his tongue at the nugget, like a chicken clucks to gather the young? Hannibal makes Chinese herbal silky chicken, and pontificates on its ancient healing properties. Will, less pretentious than Hannibal, remarks that the fancy serial killer has simply made chicken soup for a sick friend. It embarrasses Hannibal, who reluctantly and quietly admits this without looking Will in the eye. At the end of Season 1, Will has been framed by Hannibal, and we get a fan service ending with Will locked up like Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs.
Hello, Dr. Lecter.
Season 2 begins with Will in jail and Hannibal serving as his replacement, solving serial killer crimes. It was at this moment during my rewatch that I remembered that Hannibal morphed into a different series in Season 2. No longer an elevated police procedural with fanciful art direction, Hannibal leaned more into being a character drama, a high-stakes cat and mouse with twists and turns. The investigation and central question, who's the cannibal and are there two cannibals, was solved for the audience, and now, much like Twin Peaks, the series had to take on a new dimension. If you were invested in the, relationship between Hannibal and Will, you had a buffet in front of you. If you didn't give 2/3 of a f*** about that, then, well, why are you watching Hannibal? A question I began to ask myself. Feeling my hunger grow in Season 2, I drove to the most behatted fast food chain, Arby's. I heard a rumor that they had the meats. I purchased a buffalo chicken wrap, curly fries, and a Sprite. Arby's buffalo chicken wrap had one thing going for it. The wrap was tight and sturdy enough that I could potentially eat it in the car on my way home, which I considered but decided against. If any of the chicken fell out, I would lament my wasted money. With fast food costing so much more these days, I could not risk this. Corporate profits are way up. If you believe fast food prices are up because corporations are making less money and need to tighten their belts, then congratulations on your blissful naivete. The only fast food that is entirely safe to eat while driving is Taco Bell, and only the burritos. The tortilla secures the goodness inside, limiting the possibility of food spill. My desire for the hottest of chicken once again went unsatisfied, as the buffalo chicken wrap was a 3 out of 10 on the spiceometer. I don't know why I expected anything else. Even the so-called Diablo sauce from Taco Bell tastes like mild to medium salsa. Hannibal Lecter would remark that this sauce is hardly worthy of the mark of the devil. I wish I enjoyed Arby's curly fries more, because at least these ultra-crispy mangled potatoes are something different, something of a novelty in the fast food world. But there is a coarseness to them that leaves me aching and sad. Arby's curly fries prove that something can be too crunchy, which is blasphemy to those of us who serve at the altar of the Cap'n. Sprite is, in my humble opinion, the best fast food soft drink. Coca-Cola is not sweet enough to withstand the watering down common among fast food restaurants, whereas Sprite is so sweet, so emboldened by citrus, that much of its flavor remains, even after the waterfall of criminal cheapness perpetrated by fast food giants. A few minutes ago, when I said Season 2 begins with Will in jail, I lied. Season 2 begins with a flash forward to the end of the season in which Morpheus fights Hannibal Lecter in some kind of celebrity death match. We know it's coming, we just don't know when. And then we discover that it happens at the end of the season. The martial arts throwdown happens because Will and Jack and everyone else has been plotting to catch Hannibal through a labyrinth of deception. Now would be a good time to talk about all the death fake-outs in the series. Nearly every major character in Hannibal is seemingly killed at one point, only to be revealed to be not dead after all, or returns as a memory ghost. Abigail Hobbs died off-screen, and then returned on-screen to defenestrate Alana Bloom, killing her, until it was revealed in Season 3 that Alana survived and was visited by Frederick Chilton, who was shot in the head in Season 2 but miraculously recovered with only aesthetic damage, who was then burned alive in grotesque, spicy fashion, until it was revealed that he survived, albeit transmogrified into extra crispy KFC, much to the chagrin of Jack Crawford, who seemingly died at the end of Season 2, until it was revealed that he was totally fine in Season 3, as he had unfinished business chucking the remains of his wife, who was definitely dead because ashes are harder to reconstitute, even with plot magic, which was information that would have made a great headline for Freddie Lowndes, who was seemingly killed by Will Graham, until it was revealed that it was a scheme to trick Hannibal, which saved Will from being prosecuted for the alleged murder
seemingly killed
by Hannibal at the end of Season 2, until it was revealed that the protagonist of this series was wearing his main character's stabbing-proof vest, which would have come in handy for Miriam Lass, a Clarice Starling stand-in who was reportedly killed before the events of the series,
until it was revealed
that she was actually alive, much like Abel Gideon, who was seemingly killed by Will in Season 1, until it was revealed between seasons on a talk show that he recovered from his wounds and would return in Season 2, much like Mason Verger, whose neck was snapped by Hannibal, something he did to another character earlier in the series that absolutely killed him but did not kill Mason Verger. For it was revealed that Verger survived the neck snap and returned immediately thereafter, which is similar to the case of Francis the Great Red Dragon, who shotgun blasted an enormous hole in himself until it was revealed that he survived, which reminds me of Garrett Jacob Hobbs, who dies in the beginning of the series but remains a recurring character as a memory or something throughout the entire series run, or like Abigail Hobbs again, who returns in Season 3 both as a hallucination and in a flashback, or Beverly Katz, who, no, she's just dead. I think that's all of them. Tell me in the comments if I missed one. While I watched the third and final season, I decided to toast the wonderfully campy character of Frederick Chilton by eating Kentucky Fried Chicken. I purchased a spicy chicken sandwich, fries, and a Pepsi. I felt nothing. Empty. How could KFC, of all fast food joints, not come out on top in the chicken sandwich Cold War? A few years prior, a chicken sandwich arms race commenced among the belligerents of the fast food wars. Sick and tired of supporting Chick-fil-A, customers cried out for better chicken sandwiches made by comparatively less hateful people. McDonald's, Burger King, Popeyes, and every other major fast food chain tried their hand at besting what is, let's face it, just a pretty good chicken sandwich with pickles on it. KFC's imitation is fair to middling. Burger King's imitation is poor, whereas the imitations from McDonald's, Popeyes, and others are arguably superior to Chick-fil-A. Much like Sprite, Pepsi's sweetness allows it to survive the watering down of fast food chains. On its own, I prefer Coke. In a fast food drive-thru, I prefer Pepsi. Maybe one day, fast food chains will actually sell us what we are paying for. But that day is not today. That day is after the revolution. Hannibal earned an intense cult audience, partly due to the longing stares between Will Graham and the titular serial killer. Will they? Won't they? And if they do, how explicit will it be on network television in prime time? Why must gay romance on television so often be relegated to innuendo and subtext? Why couldn't Xena and Gabrielle just be a romantic couple in clear, unambiguous terms? In Season 3, Will asks Dr. Bedelia In Season 3, Will asks Dr. Bedelia Demora if Hannibal has a thing for him, and the doctor gives a firm and powerful maybe. In the series finale, Will and Hannibal embrace but do not kiss or have sex. Just kinda hold each other in a way that could be described as romantic, swaying back and forth, hungering, so to speak, and then they fall off a cliff or Will pushes him. It's ambiguous. So how gay is this series really? Yes, the series was created by Brian Fuller, a gay man, and there are more than a few glances between men that go on a bit too long. You could make a massive compilation video of all scenes and dialogue that could be described double entendre, risqué, and many other French words.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit? More like boner appetite. In interviews after the series concluded, Brian Fuller referred to Will as queer and Hannibal as pansexual, but neither character is canonically described in those terms within the series. These admissions might create new meaning, but these admissions do not create new scenes. The queer subtext in Hannibal is immense and impossible to miss, but the queer text is limited to Alana Bloom and Margot Verger getting together in Season 3. How satisfying this is, well, your mileage may vary. Listen, this is just me, but I want to care about the characters as characters and not just see them as symbols of yearning. 3 seasons of yearning without even acknowledging the yearning in the text gets a little exhausting. Season 3 was critically acclaimed, for whatever that's worth, but it saw a huge drop in ratings, 48% from what I'm reading. Nearly half of the audience completely noped out. The audience for Hannibal was already small and cult-like, but if almost half that audience can't even be bothered to continue watching the series, then the cult is much, much smaller than previously estimated. If my opinions on the yearning catch me some flack in the comments, okay, fine. But I feel pretty vindicated by these numbers. I'm not alone on this. For the record, I stuck it out in the waning episodes of 2015. I am not responsible for this show getting canceled. I watched the whole thing, every single episode. I rolled my eyes at broken-hearted Hannibal, cheered when Jack Crawford kicked his entire ass all over Italy, and cringed at the dragon growl sounds.
Who see more than you. I have dared. There.
I was there. But I get it. I get not tuning in anymore. Here's an idea. How about one character gets to be happy? Just one. Just one character in the series is in a good place in their life, instead of this endless, blood-soaked misery train. You know, some of us are depressives, and we just can't take this kind of thing season after season. Even True Detective Season 1 ended on a positive note because a funeral needs a eulogy, or else it's just a bunch of people crying in a room eating sandwiches. I'm glad that I'm finished with this series. I'm also glad that I'm finished with all that fast food fried chicken during this. I don't know what I was thinking. I feel like I was just looking for an excuse to go off my diet. I gained 5 pounds during this experiment. I'm sure I can burn it off though. I lost, no joke, over 40 pounds in the past 12 months prior to going off my diet. I am lean and hot again. And unlike Agent Scully here, I didn't even have to amputate my limbs to drop weight. What is she? Jesus Christ, is she eating herself? That's it, I'm out of here. Hi everyone. If you want to support what I do, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment under this video. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/renegadecut. I'll see you soon.